Hello and welcome to a brand new Mind Mastery video. Today I'm going to talk about how we go through this process of self-development. So I like to call it the emerging self because if we look at the process of individuation, that's what it kind of happens, that the self emerges from the sea of the unconscious and it becomes individuated on the background of everything else. So it becomes distinct, but at the same time connected to everything else within the psyche itself and other people. So this might be commonly misunderstood as individualism, where we become very distinct, where we become very unique, where we become very, very different to everyone else. But in the process of individuation, it's not so much about this uniqueness, although obviously that's going to be a byproduct of the process, but more about being distinct on this background of the unconscious material, distinct on the background of everything else. So that in a sense you are connected, but also separated, where you become more connected with what is going on around you, inside you, but also more detached and being able to perceive your life and yourself from this more, from this kind of meta perspective, meta-awareness. So I'm not going to be using many theories in this video because I think I've talked a lot already about it, and I've wrote a lot about it on my blog as well, where I provide all the references to various different, to many different theories. But in this video, it's more about sharing what I've managed to kind of synthesize from reading and researching about this process of growth and development of the self, or simply of us as human beings. So generally, the pattern appears to be of a spiral. So from the moment when we are born, we start to follow this process of spiral where we grow and develop, where we develop certain skills, where we expand our awareness, where we expand maybe our consciousness in a sense. But also an important element of this process is not only, the positive experiences, the experience of growth and expansion, but also all these negative elements that it might entail. So for example, feeling like we're moving backwards, or facing obstacles that are too difficult for us, or suddenly experiencing like everything is going wrong in our lives. And despite how these negative experiences might affect us, how they might appear to us, where we might feel, put off, or demotivated, or depressed even, it all has its place. It's all part of this growth that we didn't even choose, probably, but we are simply a part of. Just as the world around us evolves, so we are along with these processes. So I think it's very important to not get discouraged when things go wrong in our lives. This is part of the process, right? But, we might forget about the broader picture. It's very easy to get pulled in to this, negative stories or negative experiences where our vision or our perspective narrows down to what is going on in front of us and loses this meta perspective from which we can see the broader picture, from which we can see the pattern that we are part of, in a sense, the pattern of development. So a part of the spiral world which entails all these positive and negative experiences. So you go up, but you also go a little bit down. You go up and then a little bit down. We can see that part of the spiral is also a cycle. So what is the cycle in terms of our development? Well, I think the easiest way to understand it is, let's say you want to play an instrument, a guitar. So you first learn a few simple chords, right? That's going to take you some time to learn. So a whole cycle. You learn one chord, that's one cycle, and then you learn the other chord, and that's a second cycle. And obviously this process is not going to be linear because it's a new skill and you're putting a lot of effort and you don't know what you're doing. So you're going to gain a little bit of skill, and then as you approach the next level of development, you're going to fall down a little bit on this previous level that you've been on in order to build up a next level and then a next level. So again, following a spiral, and following this idea of a cycle. And this idea of a cycle it's a very ancient idea that has been a part of all societies in the world. In the past, the cycle itself has been quite a sacred symbol, where people recognized how the expansion of the consciousness, or the development of the self, or individuation, however you want to call it, follows this pattern of a cycle where we are the same throughout the whole process. Because in a sense, nothing really changes. But then we become different as we go through the cycle itself. So that's why it's a cycle, because on the one hand, we grow and develop, but then on the other hand, we don't add anything new. It's more about becoming who we are, in a sense. So enabling ourselves to become who we can be, or who we already are. In my opinion, I don't think we can fully control this process, but we can tune into it. So in a sense, we can kind of get out of our own way, so that this process can unfold naturally without too much interference. Although I think even if we do try to interfere, or even if we do try to block this process, the very fact that we are doing so is still part of this process. So no matter what we do, we are the part of this spiral of growth where we are moving towards becoming more of who we can be. And I think that everyone is doing it. Everyone is doing it already. And it's not something that you have to work on for this process to unfold. But it's more like, what can you stop doing so that this process can be happening in the first place? What can you stop? How can you stop interfering? How can you allow yourself to be part of this process so that you don't screw up your life, in a sense, and you engage with life as much as you can? So even if from the outside it sometimes might appear like, all right, you either engage with this process and you do coaching, you do research, you do therapy, whatever is necessary, whatever you feel is necessary. It might seem like that from the outside, but in my opinion, it's already happening. It's already you're already part of this process. You don't have to choose. You don't have to say to yourself that, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on self-actualisation now. All right, I'm going to develop myself. I don't think it works that way at all. Although making this conscious choice opens certain opportunities for you, because then you can make sure that you don't block this process, and you can make sure that you actually participate. So you're not just a passive witness or simply a passenger on this journey, but actually you can participate in this process consciously. And isn't it like more interesting than not engaging with this process at all, or not paying attention to it and just being focused on, everyday stuff in your life? Isn't it more interesting to develop this meta perspective, this so-called witnessing self that is all-seeing, or at least it sees more than your own little self, consumed by everyday stuff, consumed by your job, consumed by your money problem, consumed by your relationships? Obviously, these things are important because you need to survive. But wouldn't your life have more purpose if you did engage more with this bigger picture? So what is the plan? Where are you going? Where did you come from? What is the pattern that you are following? What is the fractal that yourself is creating? And I think it's quite amazing because, in a sense, it's somewhat like a theory of determinism, so that, there is a pattern and we follow it by being a byproduct of our environment, of our biology. But then there's also this element of having some control and having some choice, having some options that can become available to us. The more we are willing to perceive, the more outside perspective we can gain, the more awareness and consciousness we can gain. So I think this is something to consider as well. What do you think? Do you think that it is completely up to us to develop? Do you think that it is completely up to us to work on this process of self-development and individuation? Or do you think that this process is unfolding naturally, whether we like it or not. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinion, and if you're interested in working more with your awareness and staying present and developing this meta perspective, you can still sign up for my Awareness and Dissociation workshop. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.